So first podcast episode, first video we've ever done specifically for a podcast. Why are we here? Why have we started the Pursuit of Truth? Why are we now starting a podcast? Why are we doing stuff on YouTube and social media? Like, what's the point of all this? What would you say?
I mean, one thing for me is just super excited for this moment. I have been burdened so much recently just to have a bigger voice, and not because of me, not at all because of me. I don't think I communicate clearly all the time, so I feel like that's kind of puts me in the spotlight. But I love the opportunity to be able to share truth, to be able to share God's word, to be able to share with people what God's done in our life. I think that we can, and hopefully other people can relate to us in different ways, and I think that that's an encouragement and blessing, a way to be an impact to others. I was talking about opportunity. I mean, I think it's really just taking advantage of opportunities that God's given us, and I think that that's really what it comes down to. And just super excited. I'm a little bit more of a visionary, so I kind of see the way this can play out, and so I'm excited, super excited.
Okay, cool. And so I would first off like to ask, maybe both of us, we can take a turn asking each other like our burden. Like when it comes to the Pursuit of Truth, for you specifically, what kind of got you really on board with the idea and wanting to do more to help the younger generation out, especially spiritually?
Yeah, no, I think just seeing the need in a greater way than I had ever seen before. I really think what hit me was when we had the conversation last fall. Yeah. I was on tour with Dr. Jim Van Gelderen. I was on tour with him, and just seeing the need all over the place. Just
with teenagers.
With teenagers, I was traveling, doing how do you say that? Evangelistic. There we go. Evangelistic outreach with teens, and just seeing the need for kids to just be simply exposed to the truth. And I think that there's a lot of truth that's mixed with error out there, especially when it comes to Christians. I think that there's a lot of error that comes into our circles. And so just seeing the need, though, I was so burdened about it. We had a couple phone calls, and you were telling me what was going on here. And it was the right timing, man. I think the timing hit, and I was like, dude, that's my burden, man. We need to have an outlet. We need to have a platform where we can just communicate what God's taught us in truth. And again, it's not us, but I just think that taking advantage of the opportunity, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I would say for me, I think the burden I've had for a pretty long time, I would say at least like 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Some of it was just being observant and looking at the needs of like young people and questions that they were asking, and just wishing I could do more, but I didn't know how. And for a while, I wasn't really that involved in church. I wasn't really that involved with young people. And then eventually I started to get more of a burden to be more involved in church specifically. And I think some of that's because I realized that things, or at least some things that I say, people found valuable, and I saw God use me in ways, like, even though I wasn't trying to. So I'm like, I think I can do something to help. And then I got more confidence because of that and because of the work I was doing sales. So then this would have been last August of 2023. I came back with the burden to start the Pursuit of Truth with the teens on Wednesday nights. And a lot of it is because there's a lot of young people that don't feel understood. They have a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that they don't understand about church, why churches do what they do, the Bible, just questions about life in general. There's a lot of difficult things for young people as they transition from a child to an adult. And another thing too was realizing how much the devil hates us. We could talk about like our enemies, so to speak, which would be like the devil, pornography, lust, anger issues, fatherless homes. You could go down the list of why we're doing what we're doing is to fight against all those things that I just mentioned. And so I think that if we don't do our part to help the younger generation and fight against the evils that are out there, especially as a Christian, I think that we're missing out on a lot of things. I think that we're not following God as well as we could, and not doing our part. So I would say that's kind of the summary of my burden and why I started the Pursuit of Truth in general. And then obviously we went into doing a lot of social media stuff, posting on YouTube, and basically kind of doing what we're doing on Wednesday nights and just posting it, and then also doing more videos and interviews, trying to gain traction and get out there. So
forgive us, we don't really know what we're doing yet with some of that and some of the quality. We're still learning, and I think God's just been good, honestly, when it comes to that. But I was going to ask you, you're talking about the Pursuit of Truth, and what comes to my mind is why pursue truth? why the pursuit of truth? Is there anything specifically tied to that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so definitely. So when it comes to pursuing truth, that's ideally what you want to know, even if you don't think that you want to know that. I think there's a lot of people out there, myself included, that at one point in time you choose to believe things that aren't true, and then your life is not as good as it could be. You're not working on problems if you don't admit that they're there in the first place. You know what I mean? You can't be the best version of yourself if you're not pursuing truth. I think that's fundamentally probably the biggest thing. If I could summarize, it would be, there was a point in time where I'm like, okay, if I really want to be all that I can be, reach my fullest potential, I need to pursue truth. And if there's something bad about me, if there's a weakness I have, if there's a tendency towards something negative, I need to know that, and I need to do my best to rid myself of that. And so I think that's where the pursuit of truth comes from.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for us to just live that way, to be
Yeah.
able to constantly, in a sense, look at ourselves in the mirror and be able to understand who we really are. Because I think that we think we're a lot better than we really are. I mean, all humans, we're all flawed. We all have a lot of shortcomings. We all have a lot of issues and problems. And I think that until you can take yourself for who you really are, and also who you want to become, you can't move forward. You're going to miss out on life. So it's important to pursue truth.
And you think with this younger generation, obviously, we're kind of given our burdens and some of the issues that they struggle with. I mean, when it comes to pursuing truth, do you think there's a lot of young people maybe looking at the world and going, I don't understand what truth is. I want to know truth, but I don't feel like I do know truth, especially when it comes to Christianity, religion, and stuff like this. I feel like pursuing truth, man, like what you're saying, it's so vitally important for young people, especially as they're growing up, to be ingrained with what truth is and knowing the truth about themselves, first of all.
Yeah.
And then being able to build on top of that.
Yeah,
So,
and another thing is the truth is objective. It's not, well, I think that this is true, and so therefore it's true for everybody. That's not how that works. So I think there's a lot of people that maybe they feel a certain way, or they think that something is good for them, but it doesn't mean that it is. And so I think especially for young people, you need to be able to look at yourself and life in general a little bit more objectively and think like, okay, am I just putting my opinion and my feelings into my life too much and just kind of doing what I do because of how I feel? And if you can start to detach more, like what I found is starting to like detach more and really, really question myself often. Like, am I doing things or believing anything that isn't actually true and maybe is a lie or something that's actually not helping me, but I'm just pretending it is. You know what I mean? So just a couple thoughts there. But
something I started doing just off of that is starting to write down some lies that I'm detecting, and unfortunately, I feel like most of those lies have come from failures. Like when I have a failure in my life, looking back and saying, okay, why did I fail? And being able to diagnose, okay, there's something that I'm believing that isn't true, whether it's about God, whether it's about me as an individual, a child of God, whatever it is. Maybe it's another individual that I'm not believing the truth about them. And so just building off of that, that's actually been recently. That's not been for a while, but I'm starting to write down some of those things so I can pinpoint and say, okay, this is the issue. This is what I'm believing. So that's good. I was going to say, for me, the pursuit of truth is, it's like you said earlier. I mean, why pursue anything else? I think if you think about it, if it's not true, it's either fake or it's some fantasy. It's
a lie.
It's not. It's false, right?
Yeah.
It's something that's not true. And so, when I think about it, ideally, you're like, well, obviously, pursue truth. But I think that people, they have perceptions of what truth is, and that doesn't determine truth. It's not subjective. You said it was objective, and so I think to me, when I think about truth and the ability even it has to set free, as the Bible talks about, John 17:17, sanctify them through thy word, sanctify them through thy truth.
Yeah.
Thy word is truth. And I was reading that earlier. It's just interesting that the sanctification process that we're going through as Christians, as individuals, children of God, is going to be based on truth. It's not going to be based on anything else, and specifically the truth of God's word. We could say specifically God's word, but it is truth. Truth is the tool that God uses, and so when we're out and about doing our thing, right, we're faced with a temptation or a trial, whatever it is. it's going to be truth that that is going to be the effective tool that we need to become more like Christ. In other words, I think it's the pursuit of truth that really determines our Christ likeness. Like in the end, it's not going to be determined by living out your fantasy of what I think I am, and so I mean, there's a lot that we could go into with this, but I just think it's important. I feel like if it's anything other than based in God's word, it's not worth pursuing.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Another thing is you live your life based on what you believe.
Sure.
So if you're believing the wrong things, you're
Sure,
going to be doing
exactly.
the wrong things. And what I mean by that is compared to the ultimate version of your life and yourself.
Yeah.
So you're going to be so far from that potential version of yourself and that potential life if you're not being honest with yourself and people around you. So if you're believing the wrong things, you're going to be doing the wrong things, and you're not going to experience, your fullest potential. So that's another big thing. So, and another thing would be, another thing I think is really interesting is the aspect of if you lie to yourself, then, well, if you lie to other people, you're lying to yourself. I thought that was really interesting. I've really worked a lot on making sure that I'm only speaking truth. I'm not telling any lies to myself, especially, and obviously not to anybody else. And I think people don't quite realize that what you do to other people, you do to yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're lying to other people, you're just saying stuff that's not true. You're not going to be able to trust yourself. If you want to be able to trust yourself, don't lie to anyone, especially not yourself. It starts there. So.
And it's so easy, just for whatever reason, I think, just as fleshly individuals, just to want to, give ourselves a better picture.
Even exaggerate.
A better, just I want this individual to like me. I want to be accepted. It could be any number of different reasons. If you're a pleaser individual, that's gonna be a hard thing for you. And I agree. 100%.
And none of us are fine the way that we are. God obviously he talks about it in the Bible. Like when it comes to us, like we should all be on a journey of being more like Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something you can always work on. That's an amazing thing. But you cannot believe that you're fine the way that you are. And I think a lot of people tell themselves in some way, shape, or form that they are.
Yeah.
And then again, you're going to miss out on being a better version of yourself, someone that's more like Christ, and you're going to miss out on a lot of things in life. So.
Yeah. And it's not just the outright lies. It's, I could be like thinking, well, I'm not as bad as so-and-so, or I'm not as bad as... Yeah. It's not as bad of a situation as this situation that could be much worse. And yes, maybe there's some truth in that, but I think that ultimately it's recognizing if I fail, I need to take accountability.
Yeah.
And so many people are lacking in that area. So.
And I'll say another thing that's going to carry more weight than what we've said so far, which is a personal story. So for example, truth is very important. Here's a little bit about my experience with it. So for a long time, I always believed that I would never have that good of a life, or I would not really be able to do a lot of things because of my health. And I also believed that there wasn't really a lot I could do at church because of how I felt. So long story short, I missed out on some things in life and a lot of opportunities to help people at church because I would come to church with my head down, more just focusing on myself and how I feel, trying to avoid any negative emotion or any more negative emotion, trying to avoid like talking to people even. And I was just very focused on myself, which just made everything worse, instead of believing that, like God has a plan for me. He wants me to reach out to people. He wants me to be a help and encouragement to the teens especially, and just people at church in general. And then when it comes to life, my life as a whole, I always thought that like I could never have a chance of getting married, or like I couldn't work, or I couldn't do a lot of things because of my health. And so I wasn't working towards those things because I believed that I couldn't do them because of my health. My health was that big of a limitation, but it wasn't. And so I believed those two lies for a very long time, and I don't anymore. Thank God. Thankfully, I've learned so much the last couple of years, and I'm at the point where I don't believe any of that anymore, and I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm really aggressive with my approach in life and the things that I want to do, and then also when it comes to church, same thing. Like I always come to church thinking no matter how I feel or how I'm doing health-wise, God has somebody that he wants me to talk to. He has someone that he wants me to encourage. He has a mission for me. Yeah. So I'm living life on a mission, which is very important. It wasn't always that way. So again, believing what is true about yourself and God and his mission for you is vital. Because if not, you're going to do what I did and miss out on a lot of
opportunities.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities. So
Yeah, just what comes to me is the quote that Pastor Mark Monty said, which is the opportunity is found in the challenge.
Yeah.
And so many people, and I do this myself sometimes, you're faced with a challenge and you're just like, there's no hope, or I don't know how to get through this, or whatever your excuse is, where the opportunity that God has for you many times is found in that specific challenge. And I feel like that's kind of a testament to what you're saying. And in your life, it's like it was challenging, but I found these opportunities in those challenging times. So
I'll say this too. There was a thought I had recently. I wrote it down in my notes. I'm not exactly sure what I wrote down. It was pretty decent, I think. And it was just the idea of, taking two different perspectives on the same situation. So, for example, I could say, my life is terrible because of my health. Mm-hmm. Or I could say, my life is extra good because of the health issues I've gone through. Mm-hmm. So it's all in how I view things. So, for example, another quote is, if you have a wolf in the light and a wolf in the dark, which one is going to live? The one that you feed, right? And so it's the idea of, it's all about perspective, how you look at your struggles, your trials, your difficulties, and how you look at God, how you look at his mission for you. All of these things are vitally important. Mm-hmm. So again, but that comes back to truth. Mm-hmm. It just, for me, exactly. It took me years to really find out what was true about myself, which is crazy. Yeah. So crazy that I had such limiting beliefs for the longest time, until I was probably 21, 22. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, God's taught me a lot, and I've moved past, all those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, but, and I don't know, I want to dig deeper into, how you got your beliefs and stuff changed, like you're saying. But I think before we do that, or before we ever get to that point, just share with us a little bit of the trials that you've gone through, especially concerning your health and just growing up. I know that obviously we're brothers, we're related. I did not have the same, I would just say, circumstances and challenges that you did. And so I don't, and even myself, I don't know fully everything that went on. Do you want to just share with us just a little bit, maybe a broad scope, just kind of what you've been through? Yeah.
I mean, I had a question written down, like, who are you? Who am I?
Yeah.
So I would say I could answer that question here, which is who is David Mawson? Who am I? Well, number one, like, I'm a child of God. Thankfully, when I was 4 years old, I accepted Christ as Savior. Number two, I would say I am a individual that's gone through a lot of pain, a lot of difficulty, and a lot of trials that, I never thought that things would ever improve or ever get better in any way, shape, or form. But I can now say that I've been to hell and back, in a sense. I've been through a lot of difficult things, and I've been to some degree now on the other side of those things. And it's not about the symptoms. It's not about the circumstances. It's all about your vision, and it's all about, again, like, perspective, how you look at things. And so, like, I would say that's huge for me. Like, I have a lot of confidence in myself, and in confidence in God, and just a much more hopeful outlook on life because of that, going through very difficult things, and then being able to have such a strong vision that I was able to, I mean, with the help of God, obviously, be able to go from a very, difficult spot to being much more improved without my circumstances changing, without the symptoms changing, which is very interesting.
Right.
So yeah, that's very telling of the power of the mind, power of having a strong vision. When it comes to difficulties, I would say, like, when it comes to the most difficult thing I ever went through, that's another question I had. I can ask you that at some point, but I would say the most difficult thing I ever went through, not that it matters anymore, but I would say probably letting go of the version of my youth that I wanted.
Yeah.
Meaning not being able to play sports, not being able to be normal and, fit in, not being able to do a lot of activities and workout and things of that nature, not being able to participate in a lot of things. I think that was probably the hardest thing, because to some degree I still have some struggles with that, maybe a little bit, not nearly as much, but for a decade I haven't been able to do as many things as I want to. But especially letting go of the youth, or the youthful years of my life, is difficult, because when you're 14, like, you want to do fun stuff, and there's, like, so many things you want to do. Even, I would say, up until I was 21, maybe 22, I struggled with not being able to do things years ago, and still kind of holding on to the past of, like, oh, like I had dreams of, like, playing football. Like, I held on to that for a very long time. So it was very hard to let go of the things I wanted to do, dreams of playing football, being able to just function like a normal person, being able to kind of do stuff that, you know, you guys were doing, just regular normal people got to do, working even. So yeah, definitely missed out on a lot, but thankfully I've been able to let go of that. And like, to me, it's like, it's okay that I wasn't able to have the teen years and the youth that I wanted to. It was quite the opposite. It was pretty rough, but I can look back at it now and say like, well, it's preparation for what God has me to do in the future. And, you know, I'm seeing a lot of God using me now based on what I've been through. So to me, it's okay. It is well with my soul, as the songwriter
as the hymn writer wrote. Yeah.
As the hymn writer wrote. But it took me a very long time, very, very long time to get over that. But I have, and I mean, we can go into that at some point too. But yeah, any other questions though? I know it's a lot of talking, and I'm kind of just trying to hit a couple highlights here. But,
But for sake of time, and I think we can always come back at another point. I think just tell us real quickly, what did you struggle with? What was the specific health issues that you struggled with that held you back?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was 14, I had my first concussion, hit my head in a foosball table. That would have been, I think, January 31st of like 2013. So it'll be I think 11 years in January. And then 5 days later, slipped and hit the back of my head on ice. So since then, actually the first concussion, I've had some symptoms that entire time.
Right.
So for coming on 11 years. And then around that time I had Lyme too. Right. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, like, you got misdiagnosed.
Yeah, I
had
got
multiple
misdiagnosed
concussions
from both of those, which is crazy. And then I probably had Lyme for maybe even like a year or two before that and didn't know. Then eventually got finally diagnosed with Lyme. And then did some basic treatment on that, some stuff for the concussion stuff. And then symptoms kind of just kept affecting me for a long time. So at this point, I know there's been like a lot of co-infections and different things that I've had as a result of Lyme disease, tick infection, tick-related stuff, and then a couple other concussions too. I've had a lot of concussions, but now at this point, I'm going to one guy who thinks I have just scar tissue. A lot of scar tissue buildup because of all the concussions, and then obviously Lyme in my brain and whatnot. That's affected my brain. I know that to be true. And also Lyme affects weak spots. So I think concussions with the Lyme over 10 years, like, of course, if you're not treating it, it's just gonna, get worse and multiply your problems. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that's why we hunt, right?
Yeah,
kill off
just some degree. Get revenge on all the deer ticks and deers.
Yeah. And I know with Lyme, I mean, other folks have it, and it's different. It's a different experience, and it attacks different sections of your body, maybe depending on maybe weaknesses, like you're saying. So I know, I just remember growing up, dude, and I'm only 13 months older than you are, and I just remember growing up and like, oh, David hit his head again, and we were like freaked out, like, dude, like, is he gonna, like, literally, like, could he die? Could he go to the hospital and be brain dead? And I just remember thinking, like, every single time, like, oh, like, we gotta, like, protect Dave, and I don't know. I mean, maybe you saw that as like a weakness, but a
little bit, yeah.
But I do feel like, man, you just it's strength, man. It's a lot of strength, and I respect you because of that. So, but yeah, I just wanted folks to kind of know, like, it was not a normal childhood for you. I know that for sure, and and again, like, as an older brother, you're kind of looking, and you care about your brother, but you don't really, you care more about yourself. You know, most of the time. So like, you don't really understand what's going on. But yeah, it's good to know. So
yeah, and I talked to another doctor recently who I might be working with at some point in the near future. He said a lot of like rewiring needs to be happening because like the brain sends messages to the body to fight diseases and different things. So my brain is probably very off when it comes to like the signals it's sending and the infections that it's maybe misdiagnosing in a sense. So maybe there's a lot of symptoms that I have as a result of my brain, and some rewiring needs to be done. If that makes sense.
It's like your brain. Crazy, but it's kind of like your brain got hit with the concussions.
I need
in
a
the
reset.
Lyme.
Yeah. So
and
we'll see.
Like I know you struggled with school, and you even tried to go to college, and it was just like it was a constant struggle. I feel like for you growing up, and I respect that, man.
Yeah, very very difficult, but I've seen a God use it to, like I said earlier, like I can either take it as,
Sure.
oh, God ruined my life,
Yeah.
and this is terrible, and I'll never recover, or
What was there?
God gave me this for a reason, and I'm gonna use it, for my advantage and to help other people, if that makes sense. But what was your question?
I was going to say, you mentioned that there was definitely, would you say there was a point in your life where you're like, God hates me, God's not for me, I hate my life.
Yeah.
Like you believed that at a certain point, and then it changed, obviously.
Yeah. So yeah, I used to hate God. I used to be so mad at him. I used to be very, very frustrated and have even a hard time coming to church just because of that. And that was because I thought that, like I said, God ruined my life. I thought that he had taken away my teen years from me. He ruined the best years of your life. I thought that I would never recover. I would never have the opportunities to do things I wanted. I was just very bitter, very angry for, I would say, probably a couple years. And then over time it got better. I remember there's a couple times I was definitely struggling with it. And I didn't want to be bitter against God. I didn't want to think this way, but it was too hard not to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know how to help myself a lot of times. And even sometimes in church, I would be listening to messages and I'd just be so critical, so negative, just in my mind, just oh, nah, this is crap, or
just really truth in general.
How is that true? Yeah, I was just doubting a lot of things.
Yeah,
I was doubting God,
Yeah.
and so if you're doubting God, you're doubting literally everything.
Yeah.
So then from there, eventually, I was this. Obviously, I knew it wasn't good, and then eventually, I think it was some preaching that really hit home for me, and it was just a different perspective that I had never heard. I think it was Morris Gleiser. He talked about God's perspective versus our perspective, just to keep it simple. And he gave an illustration, and it really hit. And since then, I've had a different perspective. But that was just kind of the spark that started the change for me. I would say, according to my memory, that was probably the spark. So then I was okay, God sent me this for a reason. I don't see what he sees. He sees everything, and from my angle, this looks terrible. But from his angle, this is amazing, and this is exactly what I need. And again, God didn't do this to me, but he allowed it.
Yeah.
So I was mad because I was why did God allow this to me? And for example, the concussion that I had playing football that one time at the tournament, I think that was possibly when everything started when it comes to hating God and being bitter. I could be wrong, but I think it was after that, because it was I've had issues for so long, and God could have kept this from happening, but he didn't. And from there, things went really downhill in 2017 when I was just 17 years old. So that was very frustrating. But then long story short, eventually I realized that, this isn't God that did this to me. Yeah, he allowed it. But I just need to trust that he knows what he's doing. He has a much different perspective on everything than I do. And then kind of another big thing that I don't know where this came from, but I kind of started to think and live I'm not here for myself. I'm not here to have fun. I'm not here to enjoy myself. I'm not here to have a good time. It doesn't matter, in a sense. I know it sounds weird, but it doesn't really matter how I feel or how I'm doing or my symptoms or some of my struggles. To some degree, it doesn't matter. What really matters is what do I do about it, and how can I still be useful? How can I still be a human of value, even though I have all of these difficulties? So those would be two big things that helped me to change my perspective from being I hate God, I can't believe he did this to me, to all right, life isn't about me. It's not about any one individual. It's about how do I add value? I didn't really think it that deeply at the time, but how do I add value? And then also understanding that God has allowed these things for a reason. How can I use them to help other people? So those would be two big shifts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I just wanted to get deeper into kind of that. And it's interesting, you can believe something and then God hits you, truth hits you, and you start to believe the opposite. And I just think it's just an amazing thing, honestly.
It was a long
the way
process.
Truth works.
I'll say this to the listeners, people out there that might be going through something difficult, and they're I don't know exactly how to feel a certain way or to be a certain person, but I want to. That that's understandable. It takes time. I think for me, spiritually, I struggled for years. I'll say years, because I don't know exactly the dates and all that. Doesn't matter, but it was years.
Yeah.
And so, and also I'll add this: the number one thing that helped me spiritually was seeing God use me
Yeah.
in the lives
Yeah.
of others. So I went from hating God, struggling, to kind of just plateauing, and it was just like kind of weird.
Yeah.
Just like, whatever. Like I'm at church, just like kind of floating around, not really a lot of purpose and meaning. To, oh, I need to go to church. I want to go to church. I'm gonna force myself to get out of bed and really push through symptoms and stuff so that I can be at church, so that I can help other people. So it was quite the shift.
Yeah.
But again, symptoms didn't change.
Right. I was gonna
How
say
I
your
felt
symptoms
didn't
haven't changed.
change. Nothing really changed. It was, again, just mindset and having vision, because eventually over time I realized, like, oh, God has a mission for me. He has a plan for me. There are people that he wants me to help. And I started to realize that I have a unique perspective on some things because of what I've been through.
Sure. Yeah.
So I start to see it more as an asset, something that I can use, instead of something that I wish I didn't have. Like at
Yeah,
this point,
yeah.
I'm fine with it. It is well with my soul. Like at this point, I'm fine with it, and I'm just wanting to capitalize on the experiences I went through, and I don't want to waste them. I don't want to have to waste all of the things I've learned and all the things that God has done through me. So that's my focus now, is how do I, in a sense, like kind of gain the time I've lost, and also use all these things that God has allowed and given me, the talents and abilities that I have, not many, but just to use whatever I have to glorify him, to help people, things like that. That's what I'm mostly focused on now. I'm not thinking about the past. I used to
Yeah.
be stuck in the past, stuck in the present, focusing on my symptoms and my circumstances. But then again, my entire perspective changed from circumstances, and it turned to vision, focusing on my vision, trying to live in the world of my vision and what I want my life to be like, instead of just focusing on what I am like right now and my symptoms. And that doesn't do any good for anybody. Just thinking about it, you need to think about a plan. You need to think about ideally what you want your life to be like. And that's what over time I started doing, and it really helped to pull me out of a lot of, dark, difficult places. So yeah, definitely, still a lot of progress that I need to do, still working on my health and a lot of things. Symptoms are basically the same as they've always been, give or take, but my mindset's different. Mentally, I'm doing much better. Spiritually, I'm doing much better. I'm even playing more sports. I'm being more involved in life, socially, all that, work, business. I'm just doing a lot more. And again, it's not because my circumstances changed.
Physically, it's not the physical
No,
circumstances.
It's not the physical. Oh, I feel better now. Now I never felt like I still don't, I never feel like working to some degree. I never feel like doing a lot of the things I do. Some occasionally I do, but there's a lot of times the last couple of years of progress where a lot of the things I did in a given day I didn't feel like doing. But I knew that, all right, if this is truly what I want in life, and my vision was strong, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's good.
So yeah, just a couple thoughts. Hopefully that makes sense and helps people. That's something I want to try to help people with, is vision. I'm very big on that because it's changed my life. Just simply having a strong, compelling vision absolutely changed my life forever.
Yeah, I mean, we could go deeper into vision and how you got to that point. I think that a lot of folks, it's saying this is what I was made to do. This is the vision I need to have for my life. And I think a lot of, I don't know, maybe some folks get caught up in, the future and the present, and seeing how the present lays out in the future. And I think I agree with you with vision. I think that in my life, I'm getting bits and pieces of it. I don't think that I'm getting it as quick as maybe some other folks my age. I'm maybe not even as quick as you, but I feel like that's what drives me, in moments of action and success in my life. I feel like it's the vision that I have that will motivate me. So
yeah. That's good. And did you want to answer questions like, for example, like hardest or the most difficult thing that you've ever gone through? Like any thoughts on also like who you would say you are, and then we can get to another question that I have. So first would be, who are you? And then what's the most difficult thing that you've been through? You can kind of just merge it all together.
Yeah. Again, I think that I'm getting bits and pieces of who I am, and I think God's starting to show me different things. I think it's maybe just more my personality and kind of just how I would also say perspective of the world. I think growing up, I always viewed my future as something that would just happen, almost as like a result of how I was living in the present. And yes, that's true to some extent, but I never, you grow up and you never realize how hard being an adult is, how hard, making decisions are.
Yeah.
And, I think things like that started throwing me. And I just think simply because of perspective that I had. That being said, I think I'm finding a little bit here and there. God's been good. He's been gracious. I think who I am, I mean, obviously I'm a child of God. I'm a saved individual. I believe God has a plan for me through ministry. I think that God's called me into ministry, but I think that specifically speaking, that's kind of where I'm working through. Like, God, what is it going to look like in the future? Right now, I obviously work here at the church, Victory Baptist Church here in Chester Springs, and I'm here for a little while. I know, like, this is where God has me work with the young people. I love doing that. I love working with young people. I feel like that's something that God's given me a real burden for, is this generation, the young people, being able to invest and impact them specifically, So I would say that I think that jumping into a little bit of what I've gone through, I had a very interesting kind of education, college career. I should just say college career. I went to 3 schools and did 5 years for a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
And I would say the hardest thing that I went through was that specifically the last year of school it was insane. I did 3 years out of school, and it was my plan to graduate there. God had other plans. So transferring from my junior, going into my senior year, I transferred. And like, I was slotted to graduate and all that. And I went to a different school. They said, hey, you need to have 2 years to graduate with us. And again, a lot of details behind all of this, but I knew that it was God's will for me to transfer. And so when I transferred, I said, well, God, I guess that's okay. Like, I can do 2 years, I guess, and that's fine. And so it was already slotted to be 5 years for me total to get the 4-year degree. I was taking pastoral degree was what I was taking initially. And so not necessarily, I don't think, called to be a pastor, but I just felt like that's where I needed to be. That was the studies that I needed to pursue after, was just kind of the church and the pastoral. So I was planning on doing that. My internship hit the summer after that first year at the other school. So going into my 5th year, I had to do that internship. And it was during that time, again, God had other plans. Our assistant went to evangelism. I was like, obviously, it's just Dad here, and there wasn't any other staff. And so I was like, well, I hated school. Honestly, I wasn't terrible at it. I didn't enjoy it. I genuinely was like, let me just go do it. And I think part of that, growing up as a pastor's kid, growing up in ministry, you're kind of just like, in a certain sense, you're like, it's not that hard, and I think, and that may not be the right perspective to have, but I just remember thinking, like, look, we've been in the ministry, I've grown up in the ministry, like, yeah, these books are cool, subjects, whatever, like, let me just go do it. And so I was really looking forward to my internship. Anyways, that being said, when the internship hit, our assistant went into evangelism that time, I was like, well, maybe this is a chance to, like, be on part-time, and maybe I can do online somewhere. And I had this idea of doing online school. Anyways, long story short, it worked out to where I had to transfer. The school I was at did not have online. It's crazy, but I transferred to a school that did, and they told me, they said, well, normally it takes 2 years for us as well. And I was like, there's no way. I'm not getting a 4-year degree in 6 years. Like, I'm not doing that. I was ready to be done. And they're like, listen, we will give you your college, we will give you your certificate if you can get this all done in a year. They were very gracious with me, but I needed to get, I think it was
like a ton of
52 credits in a year. And I was like, wow, like, that's a lot. I had done, I think the most I'd ever done up to that point was maybe, I think it was 24 in a semester. So I had done that before, but I knew it was going to be a lot. And so it was all online, but still it was a lot. And so I just remember that year, I mean, we had so much going on. We were working on my car. And I remember literally spending the night here because we didn't have Wi-Fi at the house. So I remember spending the night here in this office and literally laying out on the floor. I remember studying till late in the night because things were due on Western or Pacific time, which was 3 hours behind where we were at. So when it was due at 12 on a certain day, like at midnight of a certain day, it was actually could have been 3 a.m. here because I had those 3 hour gap to work on stuff. So I just remember like staying up super late and building on top of that. I developed a sleep disorder in school back at the second or third year of my school, way in the beginning of my schooling, my college career there. So I had sleep paralysis, I had narcolepsy, I struggled with it a lot. And so at every transition, I never fully was able to fix it. And so when I ended
Yeah.
up doing something like that, something as extreme as what I was doing my last year of school, I just remember physically my body hurt so bad. But I was like, look, I'm not doing another year of school. And I just remember just doing everything I could to lock in, and obviously trying to work a job, trying to do stuff all on top of that, live a normal
Yeah.
life, which it just wasn't. But praise God, you know, I had a scare right before I graduated. My professor was like, "You missed a class. You're not going to be able to graduate this year." And I was like, "I'm not. No more school. I don't care."
Like you just didn't like
It was
fail
April.
it or something, or you
Yeah,
didn't pass it. I mean,
it was April, and he's like, and I had booked my tickets to go down and to walk because I was like, I
graduate,
got,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
graduate. So I booked my tickets, and then he called me up and was like, "You're not going to like. I just want to let you know you're not going to be able to graduate because you failed in a certain class, and that means you got to retake it."
Really?
And at that point, and it was like beginning of April, and I was like, you know what? I was so upset. I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to do any school for the rest of my life. Like, I'm just going to stop today. I don't need to graduate. And I ended up graduating with like over 200 credits, which is crazy too for undergraduate. So that all being said,
so you were able to still graduate though.
I was still able to graduate. So it was his mistake. He
So you
came back
hadn't
and he said, "Hey, I
technically failed.
misgraded."
Okay.
Yeah, I misgraded, and
Yikes,
he gave me
that's
the
crazy.
okay, and I was
So
just
you
like,
probably
wow.
just barely passed.
By the skin of my teeth,
Yeah,
I
that's
graduated. So, again, that being said, it just physically speaking, I've never been through anything like that, and the crazy thing is, I still sometimes feel the effects to this day. Like if I don't get enough sleep, it's like all this backlog is still there, and so I have to be careful with my sleep because if I don't get enough, it'll catch up and it'll just like devour me. You know, it's just like.
Got it.
But
so like your just overall sleep cycle and some
Yeah.
of your sleep related things are different since college.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
That
absolutely.
makes sense. Well, yeah, I mean that's a good explanation of like who you are and the hardest thing that you went through. I was gonna add onto something else about like who I am. I would say like right now, I think I mostly just mentioned things in the past. I'd say right now I'm a guy that wants to help people that are like me or were like me in a sense. Maybe people that had questions while they're sitting in church. They don't understand
Yeah.
what the preacher's saying. They don't really understand things about God, things about the nature of God, things about the Bible, things about life in general, struggles, pain. What about suffering? Like, let's talk about suffering. Like, why do we have it? Why is it important? Like, this is, a lot of people are like, this is stupid. That was me. I didn't understand the point. And then I understood that life can be meaningful enough to justify its suffering. And I realized that suffering on one hand of the scale, meaning on the other, you got to balance the scale. So for me, I just had so much suffering and pain. Nothing I did. It wasn't my fault, right? Just that's life. So I realized I can intentionally create a meaningful life and start to pack meaning on the other side of the scale, and things can start to balance out. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I have been doing for probably a couple years now. That's why my life has improved. There's a lot of different ways that you can pursue meaning and create a meaningful life, but some of it is spiritual. A lot of it was spiritual for me, being able to think about, all right, what do I want in life? Things like that. So I want to be able to help people like me, people that struggle with just anything. I just want to help people that are struggling in life. I want to be able to encourage people to, pursue truth, to
Yeah.
pursue meaning, because I know for me, when I was in the darkest parts of my life, I wish that I had a better understanding of things. So I want to be a light for people that are struggling like I was. So that's a big thing too. And I want to be the best version of myself. I want to be more like Christ because I know I only have one shot. We all only have one shot in life. I want to live life to the fullest. I want to do everything I can to help other people and make a mark on this earth when I leave at some point. And so like I'm just very driven, and some of that's because I feel like I missed a lot of time when I was younger. I feel like I wasted a lot of time too because of my own mindset,
Right.
because of all the limiting beliefs. So I'm constantly driven in a sense by this thing I can't quite explain, where I just want to kind of gain back time that I lost. So that's
Sure.
kind of cool. It's a little maybe difficult to handle at times because my mind's always running. I'm always thinking about something. There's always something going on emotionally. But yeah, so I would say that's a little bit more of who I am. I want to be able to help as many young people as I can. I want to be able to help for, I think Christianity is struggling right now. I think a lot of young
Yeah.
people are struggling. I
Yeah.
want to be able to do my part to kind of lift up, the younger generation, being able to help them, glorifying God, things like that. So that's a little bit more about who I am and kind of some of my direction in the future. So I have other goals and other things I want to do, but I would say, spiritually who I am, I'm on a mission, I'm on a pursuit to really add value to others. Some of that's through business. I can do that through business, and for my girlfriend, I want to get married to her eventually. Like there's a lot of other ways that I can add value, but absolutely, I think for me, I want to live life for what really matters. I think that's another thing that I have. I don't know since when, but I understand that eventually we're all going to be off the scene. We're all going to be in heaven someday, us as Christians, and those that have accepted Christ as Savior. And I want to leave a mark. I want to be someone that where I get to heaven, God says, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." So I'm really like pressing towards that. There's a lot of meaning that I get from this pursuit, from the journey that I'm on of trying to be more like Christ and improve myself and add value to others. So I like it. It's fun to me. It's something that's difficult, but I definitely see a lot of value in it because I'm on the journey.
Yeah.
When I wasn't on the journey, it didn't make sense. I was like, all this is stupid. Going to church is dumb, and God's mean, and he I can't believe he did this to me. To now I'm like looking from, I guess, being in a position where I'm closer to God, it just looks completely different. Just the world, my perspective, my mindset is completely different being on the other side of things. But it took a lot of steps of faith, I'll say that, from getting to the spots where I was really struggling spiritually to now being able to look at life a completely different way, having more hope. It's a lot of steps of faith that eventually led me to understand, like, okay, God's word is true. God is a good God. He loves me. He has a plan for me. He's sending me these trials for a reason. He allowed me to go through these things for a reason. So those are just a couple other things I thought I would add. But and then any other questions or things you want to talk about?
I was just going to say, for me, the pursuit of truth is something that we're both on the journey. I believe, and I think mine started genuinely, where I made the commitment was back. I would say probably about this time last year, right after tour. And I just remember thinking, like, I have to be committed to just pursuing truth. When it comes to myself, being truthful to myself, when it comes to being truthful to other people, I'll be honest with you, I struggled with, and I still struggle to this day sometimes with, exaggerating, or what I really struggle with is giving people a perception of myself, or saying something to make myself look better, or it's more deception, but I believe that's a lie in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so to me, I just remember thinking, like, I have to stop, and I need to start pursuing truth. And so for me, the most meaningful thing that's happened to me in my life so far, that I've seen very tangible results from, and it's motivated me, is that, first of all, pursuing truth.
Yeah.
Like that alone has led me to places deep inside my heart where I've seen maybe my failure, but I've seen there's an answer. His name is Jesus, but there's an answer to my failures, and on top of that is also, I think, attempting to start a business, getting into that sphere, the mindset that's created from that, and just seeing, I personally have different visions of God using me through that, and so I've, again, just seeing some things played out, but specifically from those two things, from pursuing truth, making that commitment to pursue truth, and doing my best to hold myself accountable. I'm not obviously the best at it, but I think that doing my best at it. And then the second thing is taking that step of faith and just being like, God, I believe it was God's will to start something, and I'm still in the process of it. But
business, absolutely.
I don't know if that's the same for you, but I know that for me, there's been a lot of value that I've seen from both those things. But we're talking about the pursuit of truth, and I just
I mean, it all is part of the vision. I think for me, the initial question that I asked myself for the first time ever was, what do I want my life to be like? I was always focused on, what is my life? How do I feel? What's going on?
Sure.
But then I started to ask myself, how would I like to feel? How would I like my life to be like? And then I would ask myself too, let's say that I never get better. Let's say my health never improves, and this is just how life is going to be. Now what? Like, let's be realistic too, but let's dream big. Like, there are no limitations. What would I like my life to be like? So then I started to think about that, and that's really the best question that I think I asked myself. I don't know exactly how that came to be, but then I started to go on a search for what I wanted, you know, just kind of understanding more of what I really wanted in life and then how to get there. So destination first.
Yeah.
Being able to think through what would I like my life to be like, kind of painting that picture, the destination picture, and then also going about the search of finding a vehicle to actually help me get there and, you know, take me there, if that makes sense. And this was spiritually, relationship. Like I started dating my best friend, and then business. How do I want to provide financially? Yeah. Okay, how about ministry? What about, you know, God's mission for my life when it comes to ministry? Started to interact more with young people and try to be more helpful, things like that. So I really started doing a lot of things, but it's all part of the one mission. But again, it was just a picture that I was able to paint in my mind of what I wanted my life to be like, and then I started to really go after what vehicles I could choose to take me there. So yeah, just a couple of things that helped me, and I believe it was God's will for me to do all those things that I mentioned, sure. Pursuing a sales career, and then now I'm just doing my short-term rental management business, Airbnb business, just doing that. Like, I think all that's been God's will, and again, it's just doing my best at trying to find vehicles that are gonna take me where I want to go in life, and they're going to allow me to do more for God and more for others, things like that. So, sure. But again, you just have to have that idea of what it is you want. Most people don't know what they want. If you don't know what you want, then you're going to miss out on a lot. You're not going to have, you know, the life that you could have, and, you know, you might not even know it. It's kind of a scary thought that I think a lot of people are, to some degree, sleepwalking through life, which is unfortunate. But you can truly create the life that you want. Like, this is something I've said quite a few times. Like, you definitely can. It just takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of sweat, pain, struggle, suffering, but you can create the life that you want. And absolutely. You know, it's probably going to take a little longer than you think, but you just have to have that belief. If you can have that belief, genuinely believe it, and then genuinely, intentionally start working towards that, then you'll be surprised what you can do in a year or, you know, a couple of years. So that'd be just something encouraging for me, you, everybody. But another thing I was going to ask you too is, looking forward, we could talk about our goals for the pursuit of truth, our future. I would say first though, what would you say moves you in the sense of what gets you motivated? What causes you to experience maybe some emotion that would cause you to say, for example, like, yes, I want to start the pursuit of truth, or I want to help in this area? Like, what are some things that really move you in life?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one of my deepest desires of my heart is to have the greatest impact that I can. And I think tied with that, it's really, I don't want to fall short of what God has for me. And so I don't want to miss out. I kind of have FOMO, fear of missing out to some extent.
I do too.
And so when it comes to spiritual things, when it comes to ministry, like, I genuinely have a fear of missing out. Some of it's because I've seen God use me and bless me, and that's been really fulfilling and rewarding. And so, I mean, when it comes to opportunities that are in front of me, and I don't know, I'm a little bit more of a visionary, and so sometimes I'll see things and I'll be like, there's potential there. And so, like, when it comes to pursuit of truth, or it comes to, you know, we could go through any list of visions that we've had and stuff. I think, and again, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that I think I'm motivated mostly by potential of impact, and being able to see lives changed, be able to see truth affect people come to that realization of truth and have their lives change. And so I feel like a lot of what moves me is potential of impact. Again, I'm speaking mostly of ministry. We were talking about pursuit of truth and stuff like that.
No, that's good.
So again, I mean, there are different goals and stuff in my life, but I think that it all kind of comes back to that, the potential of just, man, let's see it happen.
Yeah,
you know?
That's good. I would say, for me, one very interesting thought that I would say is probably the ideal thing to think about to get you to move and act the way you should act is FOMO, in the sense of fear of missing out on a version of yourself that you don't know about. But if you knew about this version of yourself, you would work endlessly, so endlessly. You'd work so hard to become that person, or to create a life like that. So to me, it's like, I don't want to get to heaven and I know this isn't probably going to happen. Maybe it will. But I don't want to get to heaven and God's like, yeah, see this screen? This is you. This is the ultimate version of you. Look at all these things that I wanted you to do, David Mawson. Look at all these things. And look what you did for me.
Yeah.
Look what you did for others. Look what you did for yourself, for your family. You didn't do hardly anything compared to what I wanted you to do and my plans for you. And just that feeling of, wow, I wish I would have done more for Christ. I wish I would have been more intentional. I wish I wouldn't have wasted so much time. Like that, I think, is the ultimate thought that moves me. And I hope that people take that thought and they use it and apply it to their life wherever necessary. Because I'm telling you, that really gets me going. For example, that person, let's say God's talking to you in heaven and he says, Steve, that person that you met when you were 25, you were supposed to win them to Christ and you didn't. You were supposed to have this conversation with this person, but you didn't because you were too scared. You were supposed to do this thing or that thing, but you didn't because of X, Y, Z. I don't want that to be said about me.
Sure.
I know this isn't probably going to happen when we get to heaven, but I feel like
it's good. It's a good imagery.
Is there any of this type, emotion or this type thing that could happen in heaven or at the end of our life? I think it could, in some way, shape, or form. I think we're gonna get to heaven. God's gonna judge everybody. We're gonna cast our crowns at His feet. The Bible talks about that. So in a sense, it kind of does happen.
Yeah.
But to me, it's using the illustration in the picture to really move me forward, and for me to live life like I don't have a lot of time. Like I've said before, I'm living life like I'm going to die when I'm 30, because maybe I will. And if I will, cool, no regrets. I don't have a lot of regrets right now. I feel like I'm not doing my best, but I'm not that far off. Still working towards that. But again, doing what I can so that when I get to heaven, I know I gave it my all.
Sure.
I did what I could for Christ, myself, and then because I did what I could for myself, I did what I could for others.
Yeah.
Because it starts with you. If you're not a useful human being, if you're not someone that's adding value to others, or if you're not someone that's adding value to yourself, if you're not improving yourself, how can you improve other people or help them? Or even maybe lead them to Christ if you're just off yourself or you're in sin or whatnot.
Right.
So to me, that's, I think, the thing that moves me the most, if you could put it plainly, would be fear of missing out on the ultimate version of myself or the ultimate life experience because I was lazy, arrogant, or maybe stupid,
Yeah.
So again, I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be stupid. So that's another reason why it's important to be like, hey, God, like, search me.
Yeah, it's important to
Search
tell
me,
the truth to yourself.
Search my life.
Yeah.
I want to tell the truth. I want to look in your word like a mirror. Show me if I'm off somewhere.
For sure.
Because I don't want to miss out. And I think that people don't understand. I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, you can kind of treat life like a game. I know it's not a game, but in a sense, you can treat it like a game. You can create the life you want. You can have an amazing life. You can help so many people. You can have such meaning, such happiness, such fulfillment. You can have the ultimate version of yourself. You can create an amazing life. You can do all these things, but I think a lot of people don't realize that that's possible. And that's another thing we could talk about. But I hope to inspire people to think bigger. That's another thing that I hope this conversation does. But yeah, I think I think that would be the thing that moves me the most.
Good.
A little bit of FOMO.
Yeah, it's good.
But do you have the time?
Let's see here. It's 5, so probably
it's
we
5.
should
So let's see what else we have. So we could do goals real quick.
Okay.
And then
it's got to be quick.
And then we'll just zip through. Okay, so let's talk real quick about goals for the pursuit of truth in the future. I'll let you just give maybe 30 seconds to a minute about goals specifically with the pursuit of truth, and then maybe a little bit about like yourself, what you're trying to do in life.
Yeah, with the pursuit of truth, I mean, I'm learning to not put limitations on what God can do.
Right.
And I genuinely believe that, man, God's not looking for talent. He's not looking for skill. He's looking for availability. That's what he's looking for. And so I think that when it comes to, opportunities and stuff we talked about earlier, like I genuinely believe that if God wants to, he can use this. And so my desire is the sky. It's Lord, I want everything that you want through this. And I don't say that in a cliche way. I mean that. If it means it goes big, it goes big. And so I would love for individuals who are struggling to hear what we have to say, not because of us, but because I think that there's value in truth. And so, so that being said, I mean, again, we could, I don't know, I don't have a ton of like specific numbers and stuff,
No,
but for myself,
I get what you're saying.
For myself though, a couple things that I'm really desirous of is impact. I've said that before, just having an impact that I don't want to get to heaven and God say you missed out. Like I had so much more for you because I was selfish, because I didn't take advantage of opportunities. That's one thing, impact, and just striving for that. Second of all would be faithfulness. I want to be faithful in what God has given me, and I think that the Bible talks about standing before God and saying, God, this is what I was able to do, and God says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So wanting to say, God, this is my responsibility, and I want to be faithful in that. And so standing for God, saying I'm faithful, and I don't think I'm there yet, honestly. So still working on some of those things, right? But and then lastly, I heard this from an author of a book somewhere, and I said, wow, that's so good, and I started thinking about it. What he said is he said he wanted to be known, or excuse me, he wanted to be respected most by those who knew him best. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, that's deep. But I was like, if you are most respected by the people closest to you, then that means that you are completely transparent with them. You're open, you're honest, you're humble, but you're willing to know truth. It's like, I'm willing for confrontation, I'm willing to grow, I'm willing to learn, I'm not hiding anything, I'm not trying to pretend I'm something I'm not. We've already talked about all this stuff, but I think wanting it and desiring to be open and transparent by people that know me the most. And so yeah, I would say those things specifically come to mind. I have specific desires and dreams and stuff, but broadly speaking, I think
that's good. I would say for me, the number one thing that I would say I'm pushing for is I just want to give as many people the opportunity to, first off, accept Christ as Savior and be more like Christ, improve themselves, and have the ultimate life experience. I want to help as many people as I can to be able to achieve those different things, plain and simple. And then to add as much value as I can to others. And I know if I do that, I will be rewarded in a lot of different ways. Money, obviously, because people trade money for value, and then obviously the meaning and fulfillment of being able to point people to Christ, being able to help people, all these things. And so this is the journey that I'm on. I think we're both on to add as much value as we can, to offer people as many opportunities as we can to, all these different things, accept Christ and be more like him. And so I think, we're going to keep pushing for that. I hope that when we get to heaven, God, smiles and he says, well done. You guys did a good job. And that's something that motivates me. And when it comes to the future in general, kind of just set it to, just with my life in general, I just want to add value. When it comes to business, spiritual aspects, relationships, it's all adding value. Yeah. It's just adding value in different ways. So that's my focus. But in order to do that, you got to pursue truth. Pursue truth about yourself and the world around you and God, of course. So, all right, well, this has been good. We should probably get going.
We'll do it again.
Yeah,
we got much more to talk about.
Been a great conversation. I think this is going to be a very cool thing. I think podcasting is going to be something that we're going to enjoy, and I think people are going to eventually start to see a lot of value in it, and I hope that we can bring people a lot of helpful conversations.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome, bro.
All right, man.
Good stuff.